Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the next episode of This is Life. It is your host, Brandon Harrison, and this is a faith-based encouragement podcast to help you navigate through life. And we are all trying to do that right now, trying to find different ways to navigate through life. And the whole goal of this series we're in is called Black Perspective. The goal is to share the diversity and the complexity of the Black experience in America. I've talked to so many incredible Black leaders in San Diego and beyond, but today I have a friend of mine who I've known now for 12 years. So I started working at the Elementary Institute of Science. I started working there in 2008, and I knew you then as Councilman Tony Young in the 4th District, and then became council president. And then I actually got to know you, aside from your titles, councilman and council president, as just Tony, once I became one of the first Rise San Diego Leadership Fellows back in 2015. Can you believe that? It was 2015. So I got to know you since, like I said, 2008 and then 2015 in Rise. And it's just an honor to get to talk to you today and to share your story. And like I said, the goal of this is to really share the diversity and the complexity of the Black experience. And you've just had an incredible journey personally, politically, and now in Rise. But I'd like to focus on your political journey and just introduce yourself. Who are you? Who is Tony Young? And then what is your journey in politics been like?
So I'm Tony Young, and I am the child of James and Jean Young. I'm the 5th child kid out of 6. So I have
wow.
5 other brothers and sisters. And my dad was in the military, and he came here to retire, and I was 5 years old by that time, right? And so my siblings are older. I'm number 5, and I have a little sister that's up in Sacramento. But yeah, so I grew up in San Diego, essentially. I grew up in Southeast San Diego. That's where I grew up, and that's where I lived, and I live now. And so I'm a person who really just wants to, even when as a young age, wants to be supportive of specifically this community, District 4. That's what even as a kid, that's what I wanted to do.
Oh, wow.
And so that's what I'm doing. I'm very, very thankful to be a part of this community, and I can't see myself, really anywhere else.
Wow. That's incredible that longing has been in you that long to really improve this community. And you have, like I said, I've got to see your political journey when I was a young 20-something, and Roosevelt was working for you. And that's what I was always asking for different things from your office when I was at EIS. It's been incredible to see that journey. But what did it take to get you to be councilman and council president? And what was that journey like for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. You saw part of the journey.
Yes,
right?
Just part.
The other part is, my dad was the chief of staff for the first city council member, and also the Supervisor Leon Williams. And
oh, wow.
Chief of staff for a while, and also did a lot of different things in the community. His name was James Young. He worked at the county, worked in a number of different capacities. One of them was being council at that time, Supervisor Leon Williams, chief of staff.
Wow.
And so I saw that as a young kid. I grew up in George Walker Smith's church. That's the church I grew up in, and who was the first Black elected official in the city of San Diego. And also that's where the Catfish Club started and was at that church, right? So the Golden Hill Presbyterian Church is where I saw a lot of political folks there, a lot of the Black leaders, even, Mr. Matthews, Robert Matthews, and Miss Matthews, and many of the doctors and lawyers from the Black community went to that church. So I saw that. Didn't have really specific political aspirations, but looking back, that was kind of my foundation, kind of being able to just see how things kind of go, and getting that kind of that exposure to folks who really are made decisions in San Diego at the time.
Right.
But my focus as a young person was baseball. I played baseball and football at Morris High School, and really, I was a person who really wanted to play ball all day. So I played ball, went to school on a baseball scholarship to Howard University. And at that time, Howard University was the political bastion of of Black America in many ways, right?
Wow.
Even now, our vice president was there at the time too, our vice
Right.
presidential candidate, Kamala Harris. But a lot of different political players that are in this country now came from that generation, but also came from that campus. And
Gotcha.
so we were seeing a lot of different political actions. The issues at that time were apartheid issues. Ronald Reagan was the president at the time, and even Jesse Jackson actually ran for office at that time when I was at Howard.
Oh, wow.
They came through our campus. So, just being in that environment really started me to start thinking about these political issues.
Hmm.
Um, and as I said, Howard University was that type of campus where political discussions were happening in math class, right?
Wow.
Class, right? Everywhere you went, and also how did it relate to the Black community?
Uh-huh.
So that was my kind of my foundation, and then I moved on and then started into politics after that. After I graduated from college.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So,
Wow, that's incredible. Did not know that backstory. And
yeah.
then, so when you got in, like you said, the San Diego politics, from my understanding, I've just lived in San Diego for 19 years now. Moved here in August 2001. So I don't have a full historic background like you just shared of the politics of San Diego. But it seems like to me, historically, has the council District 4 seat been a Black person usually?
Yeah. So Leon Williams was the first Black city council member, but before that, there was an Asian council member, and there's a whole story behind that. One of it is that at one time, the council member Hom, who was actually the council member for District 4, went on to, I believe, the Assembly, and there was a seat open, and there was a whole discussion down at Ocean View Park. I wasn't around. I was young, very young at that time. I had nothing to do with it, but there was a kind of a community discussion uh, at Ocean View Park in the park in the recreation center. I believe that's where it was, to decide who was going to be the African American representative for District 4C. And there was a lot of discussion: who should it be? Should it be George Walker Smith? Should it be other folks? Ultimately, the community raised up Leon Williams, and the council appointed him as the first Black council member of District 4. And
Wow.
since then, there's been a succession of Black representatives in District 4. And the interesting thing about it is that even now, and it's been this way for a while, Black folks are not the majority in District 4.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We're
So,
not.
so it's it's probably a tenuous situation as in District 4.
Right. That is so true. Because I've lived in District 4 since 2009. And like
Hmm.
you said, I have even seen since then, it is less Black people in leadership roles and living here. But like you said, that seat in particular, since I remember, has been a Black person. I just want to know more about the history. So that's good to
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So my question with that is, what did you learn in your political journey? What was your kind of your highest moment, and what you learn from that about yourself and just about politics in general? And then what's been kind of one of the toughest parts in your journey in politics and what you learned from that?
Well, the journey, that was the foundation of my journey. And I'll answer your question by maybe explaining a little bit more about what happened, right? So after I left DC, I didn't stay in DC at where Howard was, and I came back and I got an internship at a person, Congressman Jim Bates. Congressman Jim Bates was the Congress member of this area, and he allowed me to be an intern. And his staff member was a person named George Stevens. So I was George Stevens' intern right out of college,
Wow.
and he was a staff member, just like Roosevelt Williams III was,
Yes.
right? And so I spent some time there and got educated about that, and then after a while, I went on to work for the Urban League. But it's interesting that before I left, I brought my friend over and said, "Hey, man, you should come over and do some internship too with George Stevens." And his name was Charles Lewis. who actually ended up being a city council member. So
Right.
George Stevens, right? So George Stevens was a council member, Charles Lewis, and then I was a council member after that.
Wow.
But I left. Charles stayed and was with George all the way through his tenure after he actually ran for office.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to go work for Leon Williams after that. And my father was not there. He had passed away, and I worked for Leon. And I was at the county of San Diego. I was bored. I'll tell you, I was young and I was bored because the county runs really slow. It's not as fast as the city.
Oh.
And so I wanted to go where the action was, man. I went to, I quit and I went back to school to go to be a teacher. And I felt like that was more fun, right? Than slow county supervisor.
Uh-huh.
And after that, this is interesting that George Stevens, while I was a teacher, George Stevens was a council member.
Mm-hmm.
And then Charles, after George left, ran for office. And the thing is, me and Charles grew up together. We were best friends since third grade.
Oh my gosh.
So Charles wins. I had brought him into politics,
Oh.
teaching, and then I get a call and say, hey man, I'm gonna run for office. I helped him win. And then he asked me to be his chief of staff and brought me back into politics.
What?
Which is interesting, right? So,
Very.
yeah, so one thing I'm learning, to answer part of your question, is that politics is a lot about relationships, man. It's really about who you know, and how you engage with people who are there, and how you position yourself. In regards to being elected at some point.
Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't ever my goal to do that, right? It was just, I wanted to work with my friend. I have been teaching for 10 years, and there you go. And so I was his chief of staff. And those people don't know what a chief of staff does. Is the chief of staff runs the office, right? He runs, or she runs the office. We had an office of about 12 people.
Oh, wow.
And you have a budget that you run, and then you also play interference, or you do all the hard, gritty work so that the council member can make their decisions on specific things.
Gotcha.
And so that's a very important role in politics, the chief of staff. And I learned a lot. I mean, I didn't know a lot of the issues when I got out there, but within about a year and a half or two, I was doing okay. And the other lesson I learned is what I learned on a day that I'll never forget, is that life is very tenuous, and my partner, Charles Lewis, passed away in office. Wow. And so now you have my best friend dies in office, who was a councilman and was elected, and I am now, the council voted me to actually administrate the office. This is a guy that was just teaching 7th grade about a year and a half ago. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's kind of crazy, right? So I was put in a situation. There was a lot of fire, a lot of difficult things. So I learned that it's very tenuous, and you can never plan out things. And that's just kind of like life too, right?
Yes. Right.
So that's the next part of the story. There's more, but that's the other part of the story.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow. So what's been one of the toughest seasons, and what you learned about yourself in those seasons as well?
You know, that's a good question, because the part of the story that I just stopped at was, it was one of the toughest things, is that, as you know, I was there when my friend died. I was in the hospital. I saw him die. And it was very, very difficult. And what was most difficult is that same day, I had to go down and speak to probably, for my first press conference ever, maybe 15 cameras in a room outside outside the hospital of Scripps, not Scripps, but the hospital over on Zion. So that was very difficult, right? Because you're thrown in the fire, and these people are asking you questions, And now I was there to support my friend, and I had to deal with that.
Jeez.
And it was a day I won't ever forget. And it also showed that I can actually handle that kind of stuff, right? I could do it. And,
Yes.
and so, just going through that whole process, and then, I was ready to move on, and just kind of make sure that the office was run until the next person took over. And then that's when George Stevens decided to run again for the office. I don't know if
Right.
you realize that.
No.
And he had run the office, been a councilman for 12 years, and he wanted to run again because he could, and legally he could run again. Actually, there was a legal decision that Casey Gwynn made that he could actually run again, which is fine. But so of course now you have this seventh grade teacher
Mm.
that just got into City Hall maybe a year and a half ago, and was going to run against George Stevens, who was a icon,
Right.
and has actually, my ex, he was my, I worked for him as an intern,
Right. Right.
right? So everything was good. I was going to be supportive of that, but I just didn't like some of the things that were said.
Hmm.
And so I said, okay, well then I'm just going to run. And I was hurting, very hurting. I was hurting a lot because I lost my brother basically.
Yeah.
So I spent the next 7 months literally, and I'm sure anybody who watches this, if they're in
Mm.
District 4, they probably had me knock on their door. I don't know if anybody's ever done this, but I walked hours and hours and hours knocking on doors
Mm.
to get votes. I talked to people 2 times over. Now there's 160,000 people in District 4.
Oh my gosh.
It's bigger than Oceanside, right?
Wow.
It's bigger than El Cajon when it comes to population.
Yeah.
So from a situation of, I probably was healing or dealing with some of the issues of my friend's death, I was hurting, but I was also running for something that I felt was important.
Wow.
And so that was a very difficult part for me.
Yeah.
And I still feel it,
Yeah.
still feel that.
Yep. I can tell. And that is powerful to have that pain and drive you, like you said, into purpose and to fulfilling that. That's powerful. So my last closing question is for those younger people who are studying politics or learning the ropes in San Diego or even beyond that, not to get to where you are, but what does it take to, like you said, sustain? There's so much tough stuff in politics, but what do young people really need to grasp and to be encouraged and to say, okay, this is what it takes to get there and to make change in the community?
Yeah. So first of all, you have to, as I say, you have to make relationships, but you also have to be really clear and focus on what's important, what you believe is important for the people that you represent.
That's good.
However, sometimes the people that you represent, and some of them that have strong feelings about something, doesn't necessarily fit into a larger picture of representing the city of San Diego.
Mm,
So you have to balance those things. And then there's a political part about understanding that you have to listen to what other people have, maybe in La Jolla or in San Ysidro or whoever, so that
gotcha.
you can understand that you're making the right decision. And also, because there's 9 other people, at least on the city council, that have constituents too, and how do you work with them? So there are times that you have to make sure that always you have to make sure that you're doing what you believe is best, and be willing to take the the criticism of people who don't agree with you, and that's very hurtful at times because people can be very mean, right? But if you have convictions, or if you have a clear vision, then those attacks from outside might not hurt as much.
Wow. That's a good word. And that's something I remember you told us in Rise too about for our community action projects. That wasn't politics, but it was just something that we were trying to birth and to really feel connected to. You were saying it has to be something that's personal and something that's impactful to the community, to really, like you just said, that it aligns with your own kind of core values, but it also impacts the community. That's something that it's really stuck with me. And like you said, my life's work of those things that you implanted in me too, to really say, okay, what is going to drive my work that's not going to die out if I have a bad day, or like you said, people hurt my feelings? what's going to be able to really keep driving my life work. And that's what I've admired about you, is seeing that conviction of being like, people can hurt your feelings. People can be mean, like you said,
Yes.
and whatever life work. But I know, especially in politics, I'm sure it's even more hurtful. So it's incredible, encouraging to see what you've gone through and how you continue to lead in San Diego. I really admire that. So any last closing things, how people can um, support you or stay involved in things that you're doing as well? Any last closing comments?
Well, now it's about, this new group of leaders like you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And doing exactly what we talked about at Rise, is to really look internally and figure out really what you are about and what you want. Look out into the community and see how you can fix it, or at least work on it. And you're doing that. It's clear that this is about, this is very authentic in what you believe and what you're doing. So, and I see that with you, and that's what we try to do at Rise. So Rise is about supporting new leaders like you, and
Mm-hmm.
helping them become more authentic in their work. And so to help us, you can get on risesandiego.com. That's our website, and kind of check out all the different things that we do. Maybe apply for the fellowship, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe participate in some of the other things that we do, or even if you want to make a contribution, that'll be good. Just
Mm-hmm.
like what your wife has done, we appreciate it. So
Yes. Mm-hmm.
that's
Yeah.
that's what you can do.
Excellent. And I will make sure I put that in all of the posts and show notes and everything, because that's,
Yeah.
your organization has just blessed me beyond just a leadership program. It's been incredible. And like I said, that was 5 years ago. And the relationships and the lessons that I've learned from there have stuck with me every single day. I mean, I text my coaching circle daily. We
Oh,
still do. And it's just a blessing to see all the, it's not just even, you said new, but there's also young, older people. Like when
yes.
our cohort, I was just like, what? There's grandparents in here, there's police chiefs, there's moms, there's different religions. I was just like, this is incredible. I've always seen leadership programs, at least in San Diego, that are all about just that leadership. And it's
Mhm.
kind of surface level networking and getting to know people, but Rise is a whole nother level. And every
Yes.
person who gets involved says the same thing. They're like, oh, this isn't just helping me in my leadership. Like, it's helped me as a dad, as a husband, as a pastor, as a son, as a brother. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's really really that authentic and that vulnerable. That's what I'm learning a lot about, that vulnerability in leadership. And it's like, I fully support Rise and all that you're doing. And thank you
Yeah.
for your time today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, sir.